Sometimes, the most dangerous woman in the room is the one everyone assumes has no power at all. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, you're about to witness one of the most satisfying power moves you've ever seen. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. New York? London? I want to know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button right now because trust me, you're going to want to see how this story ends. Now, let's dive in. Alicia Ripley stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the Manhattan skyline, her hand resting protectively over the swell of her belly beneath the white gown that had cost more than most people's cars. The dress was custom, off-shoulder with crystalline beading that caught the light like shattered diamonds, a train that pooled behind her like spilled moonlight. Diamond chandelier earrings framed her face, glinting every time she turned her head. She was 8 months pregnant and radiant in a way that made strangers stop and stare. But tonight, under the strings of cafe lights and the hum of champagne-fueled conversation, Alicia wasn't thinking about how beautiful she looked. She was thinking about the brown leather portfolio clutched in her other hand, the one with the gilded emblem she'd been carrying like a secret weapon all evening. The Innovate Tech Annual Charity Gala. 200 of New York's elite gathered on this rooftop to celebrate the company's meteoric rise, to toast the genius CEO who'd turned a failing startup into a billion-dollar empire in just 5 years, her husband. Damian Cole stood 30 feet away, his arm draped casually around the waist of Sienna Hart, a 23-year-old Instagram model whose gold-sequined gown clung to her like a second skin. Sienna's dark hair was pulled into an elegant updo, her smile practiced and perfect as she leaned into Damian's chest, laughing at something he'd whispered. Phones were everywhere. Guests held them up like torches, capturing every angle of the golden couple against the glittering backdrop of the city. The Empire State Building rose in the distance, bathed in blue light. Rose petals, red and blush pink, dotted the terrace floor, crushed beneath designer heels. Alicia watched her husband kiss Sienna's temple. Her heart didn't break. It had already broken 3 weeks ago when Damian served her divorce papers over breakfast, his lawyer sitting in their dining room like an executioner. What she felt now was colder, sharper, calculation. Mrs. Cole? Alicia turned. Jonathan Pierce, the company's CFO, approached with a champagne flute he clearly expected her to decline. His eyes flicked to her belly, then away. You look well. I'm pregnant, Jonathan, not dying. Of course. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. I just wanted to say, if there's anything you need during this transition, the company has resources. Transition. Alicia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Is that what we're calling it? Jonathan cleared his throat. Damian mentioned the separation would be amicable. That you'd both agreed, did he? It wasn't a question. Alicia let the words hang there, watching Jonathan's face flush. He mumbled something about checking on the caterers and fled. She was alone again. Alone in a crowd of 200 people who looked at her with the same expression they might give a wounded animal. Pity mixed with the discomfort of witnessing someone else's humiliation. They all knew. Damian had made sure of it. The Whisper campaign had started small. A few carefully placed comments to board members about growing apart. Strategic leaks to gossip columnists about his wife's emotional instability during pregnancy. Photos of him and Sienna at charity events, restaurant openings, art gallery debuts. Always professional, always plausibly deniable, until they weren't. 3 weeks ago, he'd stopped pretending. The divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences. The settlement offer was insulting. A one-time payment of $2 million and a modest trust for the baby. Nothing close to what a wife of 5 years might expect from a billionaire, but Damien's lawyers had been clever. They'd made sure the prenup was airtight, made sure Alicia had signed away her rights to his company, his assets, his empire. Or so they thought. Alicia's fingers tightened on the leather portfolio. Across the terrace, Damien was holding court with a circle of investors. He looked every inch the conquering hero in his Tom Ford tuxedo, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of symmetrical features that photographed well. His light brown hair was styled perfectly, his smile confident as he gestured expansively, describing his vision for Innovate Tech's next phase. Sienna stood beside him like a trophy, her hand resting possessively on his arm. "She's younger," one of the older wives had whispered to Alicia earlier, loud enough to be heard. "More marketable. More white," she'd meant. More acceptable to the venture capitalists and hedge fund managers Damien courted. More Instagram-friendly for the tech genius brand he'd been building. Alicia had smiled and said nothing. She was good at saying nothing. For 5 years, she'd played the role of supportive wife with Oscar-worthy commitment. She'd attended galas, smiled for cameras, made small talk with investors' spouses. She'd never corrected anyone who assumed she was just arm candy, just another beautiful black woman who'd married rich and gotten lucky. Let them assume. Let Damien assume. The truth was so much more interesting. A waiter passed with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Alicia waved him away, her stomach churning, though whether from pregnancy or anticipation, she couldn't say. The baby kicked, a sharp jab against her ribs, and she pressed her palm against the spot. "Not long now," she murmured. "Just a little longer." Movement at the edge of the terrace caught her eye. Damien was walking toward her, Sienna still attached to his side like a barnacle. His expression was pleasant, but cold, the look he gave disappointing quarterly reports. "Alicia." He stopped a careful distance away, as if her pregnancy might be contagious. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it." She kept her voice light. "It's not every day your husband throws a party to celebrate the company you saved." Damien's jaw tightened. "I built this company." "Of course you did." Sienna looked between them, clearly sensing tension, but too young to understand its depth. She smiled, a vacant, practiced expression. "Your dress is gorgeous, Alicia." "Where did you get it? Custom?" "Oh," Sienna's smile faltered. "That's nice." An awkward silence stretched. Somewhere behind them, a photographer called for Damien to pose with the board members. He looked relieved. "I should go. They're waiting." He started to turn, then paused. "The lawyers said you haven't signed the settlement papers yet." "No," Alicia agreed. "I haven't." "It's a generous offer, Alicia. More than generous, considering—" "Considering what?" She met his eyes, her expression serene. "Considering you're leaving your pregnant wife for a woman young enough to be your daughter? Considering you're trying to erase 5 years of marriage with a payment that wouldn't cover a year of your car collection?" Damien's face hardened. "Don't make this ugly." "I'm not the one who made it ugly, Damien." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so Sienna wouldn't hear. "Sign the papers, take the money, move on. You don't want to fight me on this." Alicia smiled then, a real smile, small and secret. "You're right," she said softly. "I don't want to fight you." Relief flashed across his face. "I want to destroy you." The words were barely a whisper, but Damien heard them. His expression shifted, confusion, then anger. then something that might have been fear before he locked it down. "You're emotional," he said, loud enough for Sienna to hear now. "Pregnancy hormones. I understand." "Of course you do." He walked away, pulling Sienna with him. The model glanced back once, her perfect face arranged in an expression of concern that didn't reach her eyes. Alicia stood alone again, the Manhattan skyline glittering behind her like a promise. In her hand, the leather portfolio felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Inside were documents that would change everything: shareholder agreements, stock certificates, a paper trail that proved beyond any shadow of doubt that the mysterious AR Investments that owned 51% of Innovate Tech wasn't some faceless venture capital firm. It was her. It had always been her. Tomorrow, Damien would learn the truth. Tomorrow, the board would convene for their quarterly meeting, and she would walk into that room not as the discarded wife, but as the majority shareholder with the power to reshape, or destroy, everything he'd built. But tonight, she would let him have his party. Let him smile and pose and celebrate with the woman he thought would replace her. Let him believe he'd won. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Alicia looked down at her belly, at the life growing inside her. The child Damien had barely acknowledged since the divorce papers were filed. "Your father," she whispered, "is about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating women." A photographer approached, camera raised. "Mrs. Cole, can I get a shot of you with the city behind you?" Alicia turned, positioning herself so the Empire State Building framed her perfectly. She placed one hand on her belly, the other holding the leather portfolio against her hip. She smiled. The camera flashed, capturing the moment. A pregnant woman in white, glowing and powerful, standing alone against the New York skyline, while her husband celebrated with another woman 30 feet away. None of them knew they were photographing the most dangerous person on that rooftop. But they would. Very soon, they all would. The morning after the gala, Alicia sat in her penthouse apartment, the one Damien didn't know she'd purchased 3 years ago under a shell company. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the minimalist space she'd designed as her sanctuary. Her older sister, Nina Dawson, paced the marble floor, reading the divorce settlement for the 3rd time. $2 million! Nina's voice dripped with contempt. For 5 years of marriage to a billionaire. He's actually trying to lowball you. Let him think he can. Alicia sipped her herbal tea, watching the steam curl upward. She'd barely slept, but not from anxiety. Anticipation kept her awake, the delicious knowledge of what was coming. Nina stopped pacing, studying her sister's face. "You're enjoying this. Shouldn't I? Most women in your position would be devastated." "I'm not most women." Alicia set down her cup. "And I'm not in the position Damien thinks I am." Nina had been the only person who knew the truth from the beginning. 7 years ago, when Alicia was building her investment portfolio from the ground up, Nina had helped her create the network of shell companies that would make her invisible. They'd learned it from their father, a self-made real estate mogul who'd taught his daughters that true power lived in the shadows. "Tell me again how this started," Nina said, settling into the chair across from her. Alicia's hand moved to her belly, feeling the baby's morning movements. 6 years ago, Damien's startup was dying. He'd burned through his initial funding, alienated half his investors. He was weeks from bankruptcy. And you saw potential. I saw genius being wasted by ego. Alicia's voice softened with something that might have been old affection. His technology was revolutionary. His business sense was terrible. He needed capital and guidance. She'd approached him at a tech conference, not as an investor, but as an admirer. Beautiful, brilliant, and genuinely interested in his work. Damien had been instantly smitten. Within 3 months, they were dating. Within 6, AR Investments had injected $15 million into his company through Nina's legal firm. Damien never connected the dots. "You fell in love with him," Nina said quietly. "Didn't you?" Alicia's jaw tightened. "I fell in love with who I thought he was. A man who valued intelligence over appearance, who saw me as a partner, not a trophy. When did you realize you were wrong?" Slowly, then all at once. Alicia stood, walking to the window. The microaggressions, the way he introduced me to investors, always emphasizing my looks, never my mind. The questions about whether our children would be too dark. The suggestion I lighten my hair, dress more sophisticated. Nina's expression darkened. "But I stayed," Alicia continued, "because I believed in the company, in what we were building. And then," she touched her belly, "then this happened." The pregnancy had been unplanned, but welcomed by her. Damien's reaction had been carefully neutral in public, coldly strategic in private. A pregnant black wife didn't fit his new vision. Sienna Hart, young, white, Instagram perfect, did. "He's going to regret this," Nina promised. Alicia turned from the window, her eyes hard. "He already does. He just doesn't know it yet." Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. "Board meeting confirmed for 2 p.m. All shareholders notified. Your entrance is prepared." Alicia smiled. It's time. The Innovate Tech boardroom occupied the entire 42nd floor of a glass tower in Midtown. Alicia had been here before, always as Damien's wife, always sitting quietly in the corner during breaks, always invisible. Today, she took the elevator to the executive floor with her lawyer, Richard Moss, a silver-haired pit bull who specialized in corporate warfare. "They're all inside," Richard said, checking his watch. "Damien just arrived with Sienna. He actually brought her." "Perfect." Alicia adjusted her emerald green maternity dress, sophisticated, powerful, undeniable. "Let them get comfortable." Through the glass walls, she could see the board members settling into their seats. 12 men and 3 women, all of them wealthy, all of them convinced they knew how power worked. Damien sat at the head of the table, Sienna beside him in a chair that should have held an executive. She was filming herself on her phone, probably going live for her 3 million Instagram followers. "Mrs. Cole," Richard said gently, "once we walk through that door, there's no going back." "Good." They waited exactly 5 minutes, long enough for Damien to start his presentation. Through the glass, Alicia watched him stand, gesturing to the screen behind him where Innovate Tech's quarterly earnings glowed in triumphant green. "As you can see," Damien's voice carried through the door, "we've exceeded projections by 40%. This is just the beginning of our new era." Richard opened the door. Every head turned. Damien's face went through 3 distinct expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, irritation, then forced pleasantness. "Alicia, this is a closed board meeting, not for shareholders." She walked to the empty seat directly across from him, the one reserved for AR Investments representative, and certainly not for the majority shareholder. The room went silent. Sienna's phone was still recording, capturing every moment. "I'm sorry," said Patricia Chen, the board's longest-serving member. "There must be some mistake. The majority shareholder is AR Investments. and they've never sent a representative. Until today. Alicia sat down, Richard placing a leather portfolio in front of her. She opened it, revealing stock certificates that made Patricia's eyes widen. AR Investments, Alicia Ripley Investments. It's been me all along. Damien's face drained of color. That's impossible. Is it? Alicia's voice was silk over steel. 6 years ago, when your company was circling the drain, who do you think injected $15 million? When you needed bridge financing 2 years later, who provided another $20 million? Every critical juncture, every moment you thought venture capitalists were saving you, it was me. She slid documents across the table. Stock certificates, transfer agreements, a paper trail that couldn't be disputed. 51%, Richard announced, which means Mrs. Cole has controlling interest in this company. She can appoint board members, approve major decisions, and, he paused for effect, terminate executive positions. Damien stood so fast, his chair rolled backward. This is fraud, corporate espionage. I'll have you arrested for investing in my husband's company? Alicia's smile was razor-sharp. Try it. Sienna's phone captured everything. Damien's rage, the board's shock, Alicia's perfect calm. Now then, Alicia said, placing her hands on the table, let's discuss the company's new direction, starting with immediate personnel changes. Damien's empire began crumbling in real time, and the whole world was watching. The video went viral within an hour. Sienna's Instagram Live had captured everything. The moment Alicia revealed her identity, Damien's face collapsing, the board's collective gasp. By noon, it had 10 million views. By evening, 20 million. The headlines wrote themselves, Pregnant Wife Reveals She's the Real Boss. CEO's ex owns his company, and he didn't know. The most expensive divorce in tech history. Alicia watched the chaos unfold from her penthouse, Nina bringing her updates every 30 minutes. Damien's lawyers are scrambling, Nina reported, scrolling through her tablet. They're claiming you committed fraud by hiding your identity as an investor. Let them claim it. Every investment was legal, documented, and disclosed to the SEC, just not to Damien. Alicia sipped her water, feeling the baby kick. What else? Sienna deleted the video, but it's everywhere. She's getting destroyed in the comments. They're calling her a homewrecker, gold digger, every name you can imagine. Alicia felt a flicker of something unexpected. Not quite sympathy, but recognition. She's 23. She didn't orchestrate this. She knew he was married. She knew what he told her. Alicia set down her glass. Damien's the villain here, not her. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She answered. You vindictive bitch! Damien's voice was raw with fury. You've destroyed everything. I've destroyed nothing. The company's stock is up 12% since the revelation. Investors love a good underdog story, and I'm the ultimate underdog. She kept her voice steady. The only thing destroyed is your ego. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing I didn't already own. The words came out sharper than intended. I saved your company, Damien. I believed in you when no one else did. And the moment I became inconvenient, you threw me away. Silence on the line. The baby, he said finally. Is it even mine? Alicia closed her eyes, the cruelty of the question landing like a physical blow. Goodbye, Damien. She hung up. Nina was staring at her. Are you okay? No, Alicia's hand pressed against her belly. But I will be. That evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. The doorman called up, hesitant. "Ms. Hart is here to see you." Alicia almost refused. Then curiosity won. "Send her up." Sienna appeared at her door minutes later, makeup free, eyes red from crying. She looked younger without the Instagram filter, more human. "I'm sorry," Sienna blurted. "I didn't know. He told me you'd separated months ago, that it was amicable, that you'd already moved on. Come in." They sat in Alicia's living room, an odd tableau. The pregnant wife and the mistress, both casualties of the same man's ambition. "He's calling me non-stop," Sienna said, "blaming me for recording, saying I ruined his reputation. And you're realizing he's not who you thought he was." Sienna nodded, tears spilling over. "I thought he loved me." "He loves himself," Alicia said gently. "We were both just mirrors." In that moment, something shifted. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. Two women, underestimated and discarded, both now holding pieces of Damien's destruction. The emergency board meeting was called for the following Monday. Damien had spent the weekend mobilizing his allies, venture capitalists, old friends on the board, anyone who might help him wrestle back control. Alicia arrived early, Richard beside her. The boardroom buzzed with tension. Damien stood when she entered, his expression cold and calculated. He'd regained his composure, clearly believing he still had cards to play. "Before we begin," he announced, "I think everyone should know the full story. Alicia didn't just hide her investments. She manipulated me, seduced me to gain access to my company. This is corporate espionage dressed up as marriage." Several board members shifted uncomfortably. "Interesting theory," Alicia said calmly. "Except I can prove it's false." She nodded to Richard, who distributed folders to each board member. "What you're looking at," Richard explained, "is a complete timeline. Ms. Ripley's first investment in Innovate Tech occurred 3 weeks before she ever met Mr. Cole. She invested based on the technology's merit, not personal connection." Damien's jaw clenched. "That's impossible. We met at the TechCrunch conference." "You met at TechCrunch," Alicia agreed. "But I'd already reviewed your pitch deck, your financials, your patents. I invested because your technology was brilliant. I met you because I wanted to understand the man behind it." She stood, placing her hands on the table. "And yes, I fell in love, which was my first mistake. My second was believing you'd value me for my mind, not just my appearance." Patricia Chen leaned forward. "Ms. Ripley, these documents show you've been the company's primary financial lifeline for 6 years. Why hide it?" "Because I wanted to see what Damien would build without the pressure of owing me. I wanted him to succeed on merit." Alicia's voice hardened. "Instead, I watched him take credit for decisions we made together, erase my contributions, and eventually decide I was too black, too pregnant, too inconvenient for his new brand." The room fell silent. Then Damien laughed, a bitter, desperate sound. "You want to know the real story? Fine. Let's tell them everything." He turned to the board. "Alicia's been unstable for months, paranoid, convinced I was cheating when I was just building business relationships. Her therapist can confirm—" "I don't have a therapist," Alicia said quietly. Damien froze. "But you told the board I did. You told investors I was having a breakdown. You've been building a narrative of my instability for months, preparing everyone to accept my dismissal." She pulled out another document. "These are emails from your personal account to your publicist, discussing how to manage the optics of leaving your pregnant wife." Richard projected the emails on the screen. The board members read in horrified silence. Need to establish pattern of erratic behavior before filing. Sienna polls better with key demographics. Time to upgrade. Pregnancy makes her sympathetic. Need to flip that narrative. Patricia's face transformed with disgust. Mr. Cole, this is unconscionable. Damien's carefully constructed defense crumbled. That's taken out of context. There is no context, Patricia cut him off, that makes this acceptable. Alicia felt the baby kick hard, as if celebrating. She placed her hand over the movement, drawing strength from it. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence, Patricia announced, effective immediately. And just like that, Damien Cole stopped being the CEO of Innovate Tech. The vote was unanimous, 14-0. Damien was removed as CEO, stripped of his executive authority, reduced to a minority shareholder with no operational control. He left the boardroom without looking at Alicia, Sienna trailing behind him like a lost shadow. Victory should have tasted sweet. Instead, Alicia felt hollow. That night, alone in her penthouse, the adrenaline finally wore off. She sat in the dark, one hand on her swollen belly, and let herself feel everything she'd been suppressing. Grief, betrayal, exhaustion. Her phone rang. Nina. Turn on Channel 7. Alicia grabbed the remote. Her stomach dropped. Damien was on the evening news, sitting across from a sympathetic interviewer, his face arranged in perfect contrition. Sienna sat beside him, holding his hand. I made mistakes, Damien said, his voice breaking convincingly. I got caught up in success, neglected my marriage. But what Alicia did, ambushing me, humiliating me publicly, it wasn't about the company. It was revenge. The interviewer leaned in. You're saying she orchestrated this entire situation? I'm saying a woman scorned is capable of anything. She hid her identity for years, manipulated board members, used our child as a weapon. His eyes glistened with manufactured tears. I just want my son to have a father. Alicia's blood turned to ice. Son? Nina's voice was grim. He leaked the ultrasound results, the ones from your last appointment. Those were confidential. He had copies. He's claiming you're trying to cut him out of his child's life. The segment continued. Damien's mother appeared on screen, dabbing her eyes. Alicia always seemed cold, calculating. We tried to welcome her, but she kept secrets from everyone. Then came the character assassination. Former colleagues who claimed Alicia was difficult to work with. Society wives who whispered about her social climbing. An anonymous friend who suggested the pregnancy might have been a trap. Public opinion, which had celebrated Alicia's triumph days ago, began shifting. Maybe she is manipulative. Who hides their identity from their husband? Poor Damien, trapped by a gold digger. Alicia's phone exploded with messages. Hateful emails, threats. Paparazzi camped outside her building. Nina arrived within the hour, her face tight with fury. We'll sue for defamation. It won't matter. Alicia felt tears threatening for the first time. He's rewriting the narrative, making himself the victim. You're the victim! I'm a successful black woman who outsmarted a white male CEO. Half the country will never forgive that. The baby kicked hard, painfully. Alicia winced, pressing her side. Are you okay? Nina moved closer. Braxton Hicks. They've been getting worse. Alicia breathed through the contraction. The stress isn't helping. Her doctor had warned her, 1 more month until her due date. but high stress could trigger early labor. Nina's eyes filled with concern. "You need to rest. Let me handle Damien's PR campaign." "No." Alicia stood, grimacing through another contraction. "I need to finish this. If I don't, he wins. He takes everything. The company, our son, my reputation." "At what cost?" Alicia looked at her reflection in the darkened window. A pregnant woman, alone, fighting an enemy with unlimited resources and no conscience. "Whatever it takes." 3 days later, Alicia woke to her phone ringing at 6 a.m. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then instinct made her pick up. "Ms. Ripley?" A young woman's voice, shaking. "This is Jade Martinez. I worked as Damien's executive assistant until yesterday." Alicia sat up carefully, her back aching. "Until yesterday? He fired me when I refused to sign an NDA." Jade took a breath. "I have recordings of everything." 20 minutes later, Jade sat in Alicia's living room, a USB drive trembling in her hands. "I started recording after he asked me to forge documents," Jade explained. "He wanted me to backdate emails, create fake therapy records for you, fabricate evidence of mental instability." Nina, who'd rushed over, grabbed the drive. "Please, tell me you got this." Every conversation. 6 months of him planning how to destroy Alicia's credibility. Jade's eyes welled up. "I'm so sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I needed this job, and he threatened." "You're here now," Alicia said gently. "That's what matters." They listened to the recordings together. Damien's voice, cold and calculated. "We need medical documentation. Find a doctor who'll say she's unstable. The pregnancy works in our favor, makes her look emotional, irrational. Public sympathy is everything. I'm the abandoned father, she's the villain." And then, the most damning recording of all, Damien talking to his lawyer. "I don't care about the kid. It's leverage. Once I get custody, I'll hire nannies. The point is making her look unfit." Alicia's hand instinctively covered her belly. Her son kicked in response. "He never wanted this baby," she whispered. "No," Jade said. "He wanted a weapon." Nina was already on her phone, calling their media strategist. "We release this today. Every major outlet. He's done." But Alicia hesitated. "If we destroy him publicly, it becomes a war. Our son will grow up knowing his father was humiliated by his mother. He'll also grow up knowing his father tried to take him away from you," Nina countered. A contraction hit, sharper than before. Alicia gasped, breathing through it. "That's the 4th one this morning," Nina said, alarmed. "We're calling your doctor." "Not yet." Alicia stood slowly, moving to the window. Below, photographers still camped outside. "I need to think." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Turn on the news." She did. Sienna Hart was on Good Morning America, mascara running, hands shaking. "I can't do this anymore," Sienna told the interviewer. "Damien asked me to lie, to say Alicia threatened me, that she was dangerous, but she wasn't. When I went to her apartment, she was kind, she was human." Sienna's voice broke. "Damien doesn't love me. He doesn't love anyone. He just uses people." The interviewer pressed. "Are you saying Mr. Cole manipulated you?" "I'm saying I was 23 and stupid, and he saw an opportunity. Just like he saw Alicia as an opportunity 6 years ago." Sienna wiped her eyes. "I'm done being his prop." Alicia stared at the screen, stunned. Nina grabbed her hand. "She just gave you everything." "She gave herself freedom," Alicia corrected. Another contraction, stronger this time. Alicia doubled over. "That's it," Nina said firmly. "Hospital. Now." But Alicia was smiling through the pain. "Not yet. First, we end this." She pulled out her phone, calling Richard. "I want an emergency shareholder meeting. Tomorrow. And make sure every media outlet knows." Her voice was steel. "Damien wanted a public war. Let's give him one he can't win." The baby kicked hard, as if agreeing. Time to finish this. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. By noon, every major news outlet had cameras positioned outside Innovate Tech headquarters. Alicia arrived at 1:45, Nina supporting her arm. The contractions were consistent now, every 20 minutes. Her doctor had urged bed rest. Alicia had politely declined. "This ends today," she'd said, one way or another. The boardroom was packed. Shareholders, media, employees, everyone wanted to witness the final confrontation. Damien sat at the opposite end of the table, his lawyers flanking him like guards. He looked haggard, desperate. Sienna's interview had cost him endorsements, board allies, public sympathy. But he wasn't defeated yet. "Before we begin," Damien announced, standing, "I want to submit evidence that Ms. Ripley is mentally unfit to lead this company." His lawyer distributed packets. Psychological evaluations, erratic behavior patterns, forged documents, Alicia interrupted calmly. "Created by you, using a physician who lost his license 3 years ago." She nodded to Richard, who played Jade's recordings for the entire room. Damien's voice filled the space. "Find a doctor who'll say she's unstable." The color drained from Damien's face. "You want to talk about fitness to lead?" Alicia stood, one hand braced on the table. "Let's discuss the $15 million in company funds you've redirected to personal accounts, the bribes to journalists, the NDAs you forced employees to sign to hide harassment complaints." Richard distributed new documents, bank records, testimonies, a paper trail of corruption. Patricia Chen's expression hardened. "Mr. Cole, this is criminal." "It's lies!" Damien slammed his fist on the table. "She's been planning this for years, manipulating everyone, playing victim." A contraction hit hard. Alicia gripped the table edge, breathing through it. Nina was beside her instantly. "We need to go, now." "Not yet." Alicia straightened, facing Damien directly. "You asked me once why I hid my investments. The truth? I wanted to believe in you, in us. I thought if you succeeded without knowing you owed me, it would be real, pure." Her voice cracked. "I loved you, Damien. Despite everything, I loved the man I thought you were." For the first time, Damien's facade cracked. Something like shame flickered across his face. "But that man doesn't exist," Alicia continued. "Maybe he never did. So here's what happens now. You resign from the board completely. You accept a settlement that gives you nothing, and you sign away all parental rights." "I'll never." Alicia played one final recording. Damien's voice. "I don't care about the kid. It's leverage." The room erupted. Shareholders shouted. Cameras flashed. Damien stood frozen, destroyed. "Sign the papers," Alicia said quietly. "Or I press criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Her water broke. Nina caught her as she stumbled. "Hospital, now!" Patricia stood. "This meeting is adjourned. Someone call an ambulance." As Alicia was rushed toward the elevator, she saw Damien one last time, broken, defeated, everything he'd built reduced to ashes. She felt no triumph, only relief, And then the contractions took over completely, and there was only pain and Nina's voice and the knowledge that in a few hours she'd meet her son, the son she'd protected, the company she'd saved, the life she'd reclaimed. 12 hours later, Alicia held her son for the first time. He was perfect. Tiny fingers wrapped around hers, eyes blinking open to reveal deep brown irises, a tuft of dark hair crowning his head. She'd named him Miles after her father, Miles Ripley. Not Cole, never Cole. Nina sat beside the hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. He's beautiful. He's everything. Alicia kissed Miles's forehead, breathing in that newborn scent. And he's free. The papers had been signed. Damien had resigned from the board, accepted a minimal settlement, and relinquished all parental rights in exchange for avoiding criminal prosecution. He'd left New York within 24 hours, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Innovate. Tech's stock had soared. Under Alicia's leadership, the board had already announced new initiatives: ethical AI development, diversity programs, fair compensation structures, everything Damien had dismissed as bad for business. The company was thriving. More importantly, Alicia was healing. A knock at the door. Sienna entered tentatively, carrying a small gift bag. "I hope it's okay I came," she said quietly. I wanted to apologize properly." Alicia gestured to the chair. "Sit." Sienna handed her the bag. Inside was a handmade baby blanket, soft blue with embroidered stars. "I made it myself. I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's beautiful. Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence, two women who'd been pitted against each other by a man who valued neither. "What will you do now?" Alicia asked. "College, actually." Sienna smiled shyly. "I deferred admission 3 years ago when Instagram took off. Computer science. I want to build something real, not just be decorative." "You were never just decorative. You just didn't know it yet." Sienna's eyes filled with gratitude. After she left, Nina laughed softly. "You befriended your husband's mistress. Only you. She wasn't the enemy. She was another woman he underestimated." Miles stirred, making small sounds. Alicia adjusted him, marveling at how natural it felt, this tiny human depending on her completely. Her phone buzzed. A message from Patricia Chen. "Board vote unanimous. You're officially CEO. Congratulations." Alicia smiled, not at the title, but at what it represented. A company built on her vision, her values, her voice. The door opened again. Richard entered, grinning. "The press is calling you the most powerful woman in tech. How does it feel?" "Ask me when I've had more than 2 hours of sleep," Alicia deadpanned. But she knew the answer. It felt like justice, like vindication, like the beginning of something she'd been building toward her entire life. Miles opened his eyes, looking directly at her with that unfocused newborn gaze that somehow felt knowing. "Your mama's got you," she whispered. "No one will ever make you feel small. No one will ever make you question your worth. I promise." Outside her window, the Manhattan skyline glittered with possibility. Inside this room, Alicia held everything that mattered. Her son, her sister, her hard-won freedom. Damien had tried to erase her. Instead, she'd rewritten the entire story. And this time, she was the one holding all the power.